Okie dokie. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome back to our ZagTalk 101 webinar series. My name is Anna Sanford, and I'm the Operations Coordinator for Parent and Family Relations. I'll be hosting the Q&A portion of this webinar later on. I just wanted to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded and it can be watched at a later date as well. Today, I'm joined by three groups on Gonzaga's campus. First, we'll hear from Joan Iva Fawcett, the Assistant Dean of Diversity, Inclusion, Community, and Equity, or DICE. Following her presentation, we'll hear from Dr. Colleen Vandenboom, the Assistant Dean of Student Involvement and Leadership. And then we'll end with Anthony Medina, the Assistant Director of the Center for Community Engagement. If you have any questions during the webinar, go ahead and put them in the chat below. And like I said earlier, we are recording, so you can come back and watch later if you'd like. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with Joan Iva Fawcett.
Sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulties. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are having your lunch while listening to us and that you're in the comfort of your own home or home office. So I will go ahead and share my screen as I do have a few slides. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Let me just get set up here. All right, so yes, I am Joan Iva Fawcett. I'm the Assistant Dean for DICE, as was already previously mentioned. It is a mouthful. I kind of joke that I want to do a contest on who has the longest title at Gonzaga University. I think I might be a contender. So Diversity, Inclusion, Community, Equity includes these two offices or centers. The Unity Multicultural Education Center, another mouthful, which we just refer to as UMEC, as well as the Lincoln LGBTQ+ Resource Center. Joe Lincoln is actually an engineering alum and is now a regent of Gonzaga, and so that is the namesake. All right. So when folks hear these words like diversity, equity, inclusion, sometimes there can be a tendency to think, oh, okay, I know exactly who that office is for, and depending on how various folks identify, they might think that this is not necessarily for them or their students, but I'm here to hopefully prove you wrong. We are a department that is really intended for all students of any identities, undergrad as well as graduate students, so that we are seeing diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as community as really skill sets that is necessary for anyone to be able to navigate our increasingly complex global world. So, and if you don't believe me, then it's right here in our mission statement, which was beautifully crafted several years ago and was revised not too long ago, April 2017. That was actually, I believe, the month I was interviewing on campus. And so it was very exciting because I had learned that the mission statement had just been recently revised to include one word, right? And it took a year to vet, but it was really student leaders who proposed adding the word culturally to the statement that's in the second paragraph, that last line, how we are, Adjusted Education is really intended to develop the whole person intellectually, spiritually, culturally, physically, and emotionally, right? That was very important for students to be able to name that their cultural identity is of great importance to them. And then even before then, this line in the, I guess, last paragraph, the Gonzaga experience fosters a mature commitment to dignity of the human person, social justice, diversity, intercultural competence, and all of your faces are now, oh, here, are blocking the line. Global engagement, solidarity with the poor and vulnerable, and care for the planet. That is pretty much probably etched into the brains of many of our student frequent flyers. They love quoting this whenever they feel passionately about something and are using kind of the educational platform to make their values and opinions known. So as I was saying, our centers are really geared for everyone and anyone. We have two kind of dual roles. These centers did start now 15 to 20 plus years ago to provide a safe space and support system for historically underrepresented and traditionally marginalized student groups. If you're very familiar with college campuses, there tends to be a cultural center. They started popping up in the 60s through the 80s. But really, I think cultural centers have evolved to also have this dual purpose, and that's to outreach and educate all students in their social identities, their cultural fluency, and their connection to social justice. So what more could be Jesuit, right? So what do we actually mean when we say diversity or social identity? Folks tend to think, of race, sexual orientation, ethnicity, but we really are trying to broaden that definition to encompass all various social identities. And so this is just one iteration of the diversity wheel. That we think it's really important for students during this pivotal time in their lives to start exploring how do they identify politically, religiously, financially. I'm sure they're already coming in, hopefully, with those identities, but those will likely be influenced and even get deepened in their 4+ years here. So we also use this model quite frequently because we also don't want folks to think that identity is just, skin deep or aesthetics. There is so much beyond or below rather the surface level. This is known as the iceberg model. And really there's also lots of identities that are at the water level that might be maybe ambiguous. You can't necessarily tell, but that it's neither what's above or below that's more important. It's kind of the interaction among all these various identities. So really what we try to do in terms of learning, student learning, because we do see ourselves as educators and partners with our faculty colleagues, is we have 5 learning outcomes that are in this domain, really. I've talked about identity quite a bit, right? That it's multiple, that it's evolving, it's contextual, it's intersectional. And really we're also, coming from our origin story, right? We are here to focus on sense of belonging and inclusive community. We are still a predominantly white institution. We are not immune to the bias that occurs off campus and on campus, but we are really trying to be proactive and transparent about how we address those in an educational manner. And then we're very focused on advocacy, right? Especially advocating for those who are historically underrepresented and traditionally marginalized, finding their social justice passion and really finding ways to support those actions around leadership and social justice. And then this work is tiring. So we probably could do a lot better in this arena, but we are really focused on self-care and cultural resilience as well, right? So that students don't burn out with all of their kind of activism or passion and social justice causes, and that we are taking care of ourselves individually, but also as a community. So it's very easy to kind of remember what we do, because we try to use a 1, 2, 3 model, right? 1 department, that's DICE, 2 centers, UMAC and the Lincoln LGBTQ+ Resource Center. And then to go a little bit more deeply is these 3 pillars. We basically format our programs and our services around mentoring, social justice programming, and then intercultural development. So that is a mouthful, so let's go into those. So one way, probably the first way that some students find out about us is through Bridge. It's a pre-orientation program that's designed for historically underrepresented students, first gen, low income, students of color, etc. And so it starts with a Social Justice and Leadership Institute before classes start, and then continues on during their first academic year as a peer mentoring program. We also have a Act 6 Leadership and Service Scholarship. It's a highly competitive process that starts in their high school time, and then 8 lucky finalists get selected every year to come to campus and really change our school as well as their home communities. Social justice programming, I kind of call sometimes our one-hit wonders, but we try to do them in terms of series. So we have the Speak Up series where we invite social justice speakers, spoken word artists, that sort of thing. A lot of times we will collaborate with academic courses, so that this is also an assignment where they'll have to write reflection papers or attend X number of events. We show films, both pop culture films as well as documentaries, and there's typically, or actually always, a pre and post screening so that we can analyze from a more social justice lens what occurred in the film. And then we have what's called a Crafting Unity Art and Activism series, which is a little bit more hands-on, typically like workshops. So we've created quilts that have some sort of theme or message around it. We've invited artists to campus to showcase their work. And even in COVID-19, we will be doing a lot of these programs, either virtually, in person, or some hybrid model. And then our last pillar is dive in more deeply, even further, for those who, beyond the one-hit wonder, just coming more as a, I don't want to say a passive participant, but someone who really wants to engage in this in a sustained way. We have our social justice peer educators, as well as our dialogue opportunities. So our social justice peer educators are 6 awesome student leaders who are assigned to the 6 residential blocks on campus. They work very closely with the resident advisors to put on workshops and activities that are really focused around the things I've mentioned around diversity, equity, inclusion. And then our intergroup dialogue and sustained dialogue opportunities. Intergroup dialogue is actually both offered as a co-curricular opportunity, so students can just sign up and, or they can take it as a class. It's a first-year seminar. And the way it works, it comes from the University of Michigan, is we take about 15 to 20 students, and it's around a particular social identity. So let's say it is gender, we'd take half men, half women, or half cisgender, half transgender, and they would be engaged in very deep discussions around certain issues and activities. It's led by 2 trained facilitators, a faculty and staff member. So I think this is, we're kind of losing our ability to dialogue across difference, right? If you just turn on the news, I think it's gotten very polarized. So this is really trying to bring back that skill set. And sustained dialogue operates a little bit the same way, except it's not identity-based as much as it is problem-based, right? So they take a particular problem and they figure out what to do about it and talk about it for 7 weeks and come up with an action plan. So that is really the gist of what we do. And then the Lincoln Center gets to do all of those pillars, but very much from a sexual orientation, gender identity lens. And then we have, I only have a couple more slides here. We have the Unity Alliance of Culture Clubs. We work closely with student involvement and leadership. You'll hear from Colleen shortly. But these are culture clubs that have opted into this umbrella network, and we meet twice a month to really collaborate and talk about kind of our shared identities and how we want to impact the campus and just coordinating our calendars, that sort of thing. And of course, we could not do any of this work without our fabulous student leaders. We employ every year approximately 30 to 40 student leaders in these various positions. In addition, have 6 professional staff members who are each point people for the various pillars and the 2 centers. So that is DICE in a nutshell. And these are all the various ways you could get a hold of us. You could maybe try sending a homing pigeon too. We'll probably find it. So all that to say is we are accessible and we would love to hear from you and your students. And I will stop sharing now.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Thank you, Joan Iva, for that very informative presentation. While Dr. Vandenboom gets her screen shared, I just wanted to welcome those that showed up during Joan Iva's presentation. We are recording this presentation so you can watch later. And if you have any questions for Joan Iva and DICE, go ahead and put those in the chat below. But I'm gonna hand it over to Dr. Vandenboom.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I want to acknowledge that for those of you that like Halloween and horror movies, Michael Myers is looking at me over the shoulder. This is my husband's office. That's why it has Yankees and Raiders and Michael Myers. But hopefully that doesn't freak you out too much and keeps you engaged. But anyway, so without further ado, I'm Dr. Colleen Quinn Vandenboom, and I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Involvement and Leadership. So from my presentation today, some things you should expect to get the answers to are, what does involvement look like at GU? A little bit about who am I and who are the folks in SIL that would be working with your ZAGs. What do we know about involvement at Gonzaga? We want you to know that. Some of our advice about getting involved that you can pass along to your loved ones. And then finally, the question on all your minds, what's going on with COVID? How are we adapting involvement at COVID? And we believe in student involvement, that you've got to see it to believe it. So I've got a little YouTube video here that I'm going to play. Hopefully you all will be able to hear it fine. So turn up your speakers loud if you want folks to celebrate. Alrighty, well, hopefully you felt like you were in a 1960s beach movie with like Frankie Avalon or whatever the guy's name is. But anyway, so that's a little bit about involvement at Gonzaga. A little bit about me, just for your background and your reference. I grew up outside of Seattle in Edmonds, and I went to Blanchette High School. I'm sure we've got some Blanchette Brave students in the incoming class. Like some of your students, I'm a first-gen college student, and then I went to University of Washington, so stayed kind of local to home. Moved down to Florida, got a master's in student affairs. This is actually, believe it or not, a field that we study, and we study student development. Then I got a PhD at UCLA, where I taught civic engagement and had the chance to actually study and research college students. I've been at Gonzaga now about 6 years. And then the last statement is basically get a job, get a life in student affairs. And I think what you'll find a lot of folks in our division is that we've worked in student affairs a long time, because it's, for us, it's a calling, and it is a part of how we give back to our community. We believe in helping students and helping them grow and to develop into the humans that they want to be and can be. And so a lot of us have been in the field for a long time. So these are my beautiful coworkers and colleagues. So these are all the professional staff that make up student involvement and leadership. And I'm not going to go through all their names, but know that there's a great and an exciting group of folks that are here to accompany your students, along with 300 student employees and volunteers that work in our area. So as in Joniva's case, and you'll hear from Anthony later, our programs are definitely student-centered and student-run, and we couldn't do the work without our students. A little bit about student involvement and leadership. So we've got 5 areas. So the first is Center for Student Involvement, and that's that student activities, kind of pretty traditional what you think about when you think about student involvement, student government, clubs. We have a late night weekend programming. Gonzaga Outdoors is kind of a signature program at Gonzaga. We have a really robust outdoor program. Thank goodness we live in a beautiful area like Spokane, where students can hike and kayak with relative ease. Next up is our Payne Center for Leadership Development, and that's a co-curricular, non-academic based leadership program. There's also a residence floor that is connected with the Payne Center that's in Coghlan. Some of your students might be in it. Student media, so if your student is a photographer, an artist, or a writer, we've got yearbook and the newspaper up in student media. And then finally, the office that I actually sit in is the Transfer Veteran Returning Adult office. So as most of you probably guessed, the majority of our students come into Gonzaga as kind of 18, 19-year-olds, but we do definitely have about 300 students that are transferring later from another school, maybe coming back after military service, and they too have a robust life at GU. And so together, all of us make up the Student Involvement and Leadership Department. A little bit, just so you know, you probably kind of know this intuitively, but we always like to remind folks, involvement is really important, and it's been linked through research and a lot of years and years of study that involvement is linked to academic success, graduation, sense of belonging, stress reduction, critical thinking skills. And really, so we believe at Gonzaga that when students are involved, they're more likely to be successful in the classroom and go on to receive the job of their dreams and obviously graduate. In simpler terms, when people feel connected and accepted, they're more likely to be successful. You know this in your own life, right? You know that when you feel like you get along with folks, you feel connected, you just are functioning better. You're feeling like you can do things better at work, or you're feeling like you can be a better family member or sister or brother or whatever that is. And this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It might sound familiar for those of you that took a psych class in college, but really just know that this love and belonging is so critical to our students becoming who they wish and want to be. And so really kind of the thing at GU, our students at GU aren't saying, are you involved? The question really is, what are you involved in? And what you'll hear, and hopefully you're picking up on, is there are a lot of involvement opportunities. As you saw in that slideshow, 1,000 events a year, there are over 120 student clubs, there is a plethora of involvement opportunities. And so really we keep pushing that there's no right way to Zag. It doesn't matter what you care about or what you nerd out about, as long as you're feeling connected and that you're finding your people, right? Our advice, this is our new ad campaign, Swipe Right on Involvement. So kind of a cheeky take on Tinder, but involvement for us is like dating, right? So when you first get to college, to this new world, we want you to kind of date a lot of activities, go to a meeting, check it out. Don't settle down too quick. We don't want anybody with engagement rings on their first semester, right? We want you to meet and engage in a lot of different clubs and kind of figure out who you want to be and what you want to take part in when you're in college. Eventually, we're going to encourage folks that maybe their sophomore, junior year to find a program or area that they're really going to get serious about. So, and you'll see that as kind of a natural progression of student development and how they are coming to belong and find their place at Gonzaga. Eventually, we don't want students to become too over involved or outstretched, but it's nice when they're maybe they're really involved as a bridge mentor, but maybe they're also playing on the baseball intramural league. And so that's kind of a nice mix. We like for our students to have a couple things that they can, have different experiences and meet different folks. Overall, regardless of if COVID happened or didn't happen, first semester is always going to be a challenging adjustment. We just know that. And so we want our students to obviously focus on academics. They come first. And so that's why we're saying, hey, just kind of don't get too involved yet. Just kind of check it out, maybe go check out a meeting, etc. So the question, how are we adopting with COVID? A couple things. So as you hopefully can start to gain or to learn from what we've got in student involvement and leadership, we are a really creative bunch along with all the folks in student affairs. So we are getting creative, working within the guidelines of the university and the state. That means offering a mix of hybrid and in-person offerings. There will be more small events, a lot of outdoor space, outdoor usage. So, hikes with 5 folks. We'll be using the residence halls and the floors to program because we know that that's a better spot for some of our students because they'll be living with each other. So bringing leadership lessons up there, etc. Obviously providing virtual models for those students that decide to stay home and not come to Spokane to learn. And increasing social media presence. Maybe you'll see me on TikTok this year. I don't know, that's maybe a teaser right there. And then finally, our clubs are planning and continuing to be active. And so our clubs will be using classroom spaces a lot. They'll be using virtual spaces for meetings. So we definitely have thought about what does life look like in this COVID world. And it is an involved and exciting life, no matter where you are in the country or in the world at this time. So that's my presentation right now. I think we're doing questions later. Anthony Medina, TDF, go knock 'em dead, Anthony.
Thank you, Dr. Vandenboom. I just want to let anybody know that joined a little later, we are recording, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Anthony for his presentation on the Center for Community Engagement.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Let me see if this shared screen will work. Okay, here we go. Thanks for your patience. Hey everybody, my name is Anthony Medina. I'm the Assistant Director for the Center for Community Engagement at Gonzaga. It's a tall order to follow Joan Iva and Colleen. They're both very entertaining and very fun. I think I'm fun, but I don't know if I'm as fun as they are. So I'll try my best. But like I said, I'm Anthony Medina from the Center for Community Engagement. I'm originally from Secaucus, New Jersey, so I'm an East Coaster, and I've been at Gonzaga for 3 years now. This is my third full year here at Gonzaga. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about our center, the work that we do, who our students are, and I guess a little bit about how we're thinking about transitioning in time of COVID. Some of those answers are still kind of developing, but we do have some really exciting things coming up for the next semester. So Colleen and Joan Iva talked a lot about how students get involved in our campus. And so for those of you with students, or for those students out there who are interested in community service, in social justice, in active citizenship, our office could be a great landing place for you to connect with those things. And so let's go to the next slide. So great. Our center, the Center for Community Engagement, coordinates community service and engagement opportunities that connect our students here at Gonzaga and our communities. Our community here on campus, our community here in Spokane, our community regionally and nationally, and also sometimes internationally, depending on the program. To connect students with those communities around causes that matter to your students. Social justice causes and issues that matter to your students. And we do this in a variety of ways, but really grounded in this vision. So we have this vision posted everywhere. Oh, sorry. And you may think, wow, what a wonderful sticker. Because it is a sticker. This is actually a sticker. It's a picture of a sticker. But our vision statement reads that we believe every person has infinite worth, and together we can create a more just and equitable world. This may read to some of you as a really nice tagline or a really wonderful sticker, a bumper sticker, just pretty words on a page. And they are that. But for us, it's also how we understand our work in the community and how we understand and want our students to understand themselves in the community in relationship to the community. So the first part really focuses on that every person has infinite worth. This recognizes that our community members, our neighbors, our nonprofit partners that we work with, those people who are living here in Spokane and all over the world, our communities have tremendous knowledge and values that we can learn from just as well as we can learn from in the classroom, right? So our students do a great deal of learning in the classroom, but we also believe that they do a great deal of learning in our community from people who we understand to have infinite worth. They are inherently valuable, and we are inherently valuable, and we share in our humanity in the work that we get to do. The second part of this statement is, together we can create a more just and equitable world. This is the action-oriented part. So when your students are seeing and understanding injustice in the world, how are they responding? In what ways are they engaging with the community? And I want to underline together here too, right? Because none of this work happens without our community partners or our wonderful students. So I'll get into exactly what that is, but I wanted to lay down the foundation that this is really kind of what we believe in and what we build our programs on. So why should students be engaged in community engagement at Gonzaga? Why should they get involved in our office? And for us, it's really our tie to our mission statement. Joan Iva showed you the whole mission statement earlier, but for us, this line in the mission statement really sticks out. Gonzaga University is an exemplary learning community that educates students for lives of leadership and service for the common good. So this asks the question, what is our education for? And to whom are we responsible, right? And the work that we get to do at the CCE, connecting students to our various community partners, to our neighbors in our community, to social justice issues and causes that really matter to them, is part of our Jesuit mission, our Jesuit ethos. Jesuit education is all about this engagement, applied education. Sorry, my video just went off. But how do you take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it in our communities? How do you take what you're learning in our communities and apply it to what you're learning in the classroom? How do you take what you're learning in your co-curricular spaces from your peers, from your mentors, and apply that as well, right? So how do we really see that whole education coming together for the common good, or something bigger than ourselves? And I think so many of our students really resonate with this idea of interacting with something bigger than themselves. And the work that I get to do allows us to do that pretty frequently with our students. So anyway, thank you. So overall, at a glance for our office, we run 17 different programs that will allow your students to engage in the work that we do. We rely heavily on our student leaders to help run those programs, 110 student leaders every year, just about. These statistics also are from last year because COVID in the spring kind of made these a little fuzzy, but every year we have about 2,000 volunteers, 2,500 volunteers every year engaging with us in some way, shape, or form to do about 80,000 hours of service. And then finally, that last number, we also help, one of our programs is community engaged learning, service learning in other places, and we help support our faculty in teaching 113 sections of community engaged learning a year. So I'll get into what that means in a second, but there's an academic component about what we do and also a co-curricular component about what we get to do. So I'll start with community engaged learning. So like I said, our office helps to support faculty who are teaching community engaged learning classes. So your students may be encountering a community engaged learning class their first semester at Gonzaga and be placed in a CEL class, or they may opt in as they go along throughout their 4 years or more at Gonzaga. But a community engaged learning class is an opportunity for faculty to teach their discipline, so a philosophy class, for instance, and include a service component in that classroom experience. That allows the students to apply what they're learning in the classroom to what they're seeing in the community, and also have our community partners act as teachers, as professors, helping shape what they're learning in the community and apply that to what they're seeing in the classroom, applying on the ground to theory and theory to on the ground. So it's a really powerful form of experiential learning that our students get to be involved in. And there's really a wonderful variety of classes that are taught every year. So your students, depending on their major, are sure to run into at least one opportunity to connect in this. And our office helps to provide connections to our community partners, help students find placements for that requirement. We do training for students as well. We also run programs that act as placements for those classes. So if you're in one of those classes and you find yourself wondering, who do I talk to? Usually we'll be there for a presentation, but if you remember now, come talk to us. So that's one way you can get involved in our office. But outside of community engaged learning, we run about 17 different programs, co-curricular programs. And these are just some of the broader areas that we focus on. And so our youth programs and initiatives, we have a really deep relationship with a lot of the schools here in Northeast Spokane. And these programs allow students to connect with youth in our community as mentors and lead different recreational activities for our students during in-school time and after-school programs as well. So if your student is interested in mentoring, if your student's an education major, if your student's interested in teaching, interested in working with youth, this would be a great opportunity for them to get involved. The next kind of area we want to talk about is campus kitchens. And this is a program that we run on campus that allows the food that our students are eating on campus, the food that would otherwise go to waste, to be reclaimed and made into meals that we serve in the community. So if your students are interested in working around food insecurity, food justice, this is a wonderful program that they can connect with to help prepare meals, to help reclaim that food, to help serve meals in the community as well. During COVID last semester, a lot of our programming had to take a pause. Our direct service had to take a pause because of what was going on. But one thing that kind of was able to remain was our campus kitchens program, because there was such a need in the community for food access, especially at our schools. Our schools in the community were able to provide meals to all of the students that were going to the school. So at Logan Elementary, for example, all the youth were able to get meals, but their parents and families weren't able to access those meals in the same way. And so part
Anthony, your mic. Oh.
Sorry, yeah, my little technical difficulties here. So a partnership between our Campus Kitchens program, our Sodexo Zag Dining program on campus, and Anonymous Donor allowed us to make those meals a reality in the community and allow us to keep doing that kind of a program, right? So really cool opportunity there too. Our Zag Volunteer Corps program, this is kind of split, but we provide opportunities for students to interact with our nonprofit partners in formal ways too, right? So if you're interested in working with a House of Charity down at the homeless shelter downtown, if you're interested in working with and learning from immigrants and refugees in our community through World Relief, if you're interested in working with low-income seniors over at O'Malley, I mean, these are the different ways you can get involved in our nonprofit partners, over the course of a semester. Through the Zag Volunteer Corps program, we also offer one-time or short-term engagement programs as well. So if you're not sure that you can commit to a full semester or a full year, you can kind of dip your feet into what service might look like during one of our one-time service opportunities. GUSR is our Gonzaga University Specialized Recreation Program. This program pairs students from Gonzaga students with adults who have developmental disabilities and have the students and the adults do recreation together to form relationships. It's a really wonderful program that was actually started by students on campus and has really evolved into this really wonderful kind of communal space where students and the participants put on a play every year, which is really great. And they also do sports programming as well. So if that calls to your students, if there's a connection there for your students, that might be a great program as well. Finally, our service immersion programs are opportunities to travel and immerse ourselves in communities outside of Spokane to learn about issues and challenges and assets in a variety of different communities, right? So a couple of our programs here under this umbrella include the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice that happens every November, right? And so every November we take a group of students to Washington, DC, where students join with the Ignatian Family Teach-In, which is this really wonderful Jesuit Ignatian social justice conference, and they're able to advocate on behalf of issues that matter to them. So that usually happens in November. This year, that's happening virtually. And there's an opportunity for a lot more students to get involved in that. But our other immersion programs include our Mission Possible program, which is our spring break outreach program. So over spring break, students travel to 7 or 8 or 10, depending on the year, different locations across the country and serve in communities and learning about the community context, usually connecting with community partners, doing some kind of service activity sometimes, but a lot of time just being in solidarity with people across our country to help illuminate what's going on in our world, in our country, and how that applies here back in Spokane, right? Finally, we do a Justice in January program. So during winter break, we send students to the US-Mexico border. This is accompanied by a really wonderful sociology class on immigration that's taught in the fall. And students then go in January down to 3 different locations: Tucson, Nogales, El Paso, Juarez, San Diego, Tijuana. to engage with local nonprofit partners, community leaders, and folks who are involved in immigration issues to really kind of understand that issue more deeply. This year, that program is already kind of slated to move things back a little bit because January might not be possible to travel. So we're looking at kind of shifting what that program will look like. How am I on time? I don't want to keep going. I'm taking too much time.
We'll have about 20 minutes for Q&A with where we are now.
I'll wrap up real quick.
Okay.
There's really wonderful opportunities to connect virtually as well. One thing that's not on here is the community chat with Tony and Kat. I'm Tony, and I I host that chat where we connect with our community partners here in Spokane to dive deep on issues that are affecting our community and have students interact with those community partners virtually. And so it's a really great opportunity to connect, learn more about our community. Finally, we're not going to have enough time to talk through all of this, but our center also houses Opportunity Northeast. And Opportunity Northeast, in a nutshell, this is really complicated to explain, but it's a university-wide initiative to really connect more deeply with our Northeast community. So the community that our campus exists in is in Northeast Spokane. And this is kind of the footprint that we're looking at here. And it's a university-wide initiative. So how does our whole university engage with our community in really responsible, wonderful, deep ways to help drive change in the community alongside community partners, right? And so outside of just sending students into the community, how do our faculty engage? How does our physical space engage with the community? How do all of these things matter in our community, right? And so this is a brand new initiative that was started in February, launched in February, and will continue to be kind of growing and evolving. So if you're interested in knowing more about that and getting a better explanation, you can come see us in person or digitally email us or reach out to us as well. Great. We are located in Hemmingson, 206 and 010. We have 2 office spaces, 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs. If you want to come by, please do, depending on what our situation is in the fall. But also, you can go to our website, gonzaga.edu/CCE, to see all of our programs and get a better picture of all of that. And then finally, we also run a site called www.serve.gonzaga.edu, Gonzaga Connected. And this is an opportunity for your students and for yourselves to look at what's happening in our community. What kind of service opportunities are out there? What is our community asking for? It's a great resource for our students to connect to the community more deeply. Again, my name is Anthony Medina. Please reach out to me. If you're a parent, if you're a student out there, and you're interested at all in our programs, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony. That was great. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chat. I noticed that some Q&A was happening in the chat during the previous presentations. So for the purposes of recording, I'm going to go ahead and run through the questions and answers that we had real quick, just so that gets into the recording when it does get published. And then we will go into some of the unanswered questions that we have in there. Okay, let's go ahead and pull up that chat. Okay. So one of the first questions that we had, will all of the student activities be available if Gonzaga is mostly virtual? And then again, privately to us, can you discuss more about how students would get involved virtually with events and clubs, and more about the type and frequency of outdoor trips? Dr. Vandenboom answered, great question. There will definitely be both in-person and virtual. For example, we'll have tons of outdoor hikes and kayaking in person, as well as in-person leadership workshops and club happenings. We've been working all summer to have a good mix of hybrid and in-person. Additionally, for online, we've seen great success with our virtual spike nights. Like 800 people showed up to a virtual scavenger hunt. That's great engagement. That is amazing. Moving on to another question, and I believe this was answered in your presentation, Anthony. Is there some planning to offer volunteer opportunities for students in the community even during the pandemic, and what will that look like?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. I mean, a lot of our programs are currently in the process of rethinking what they'll look like, at least in the immediate in the short term, because during phase 2, it's really not responsible for our office to send students out into the community in the same way that we did in previous years, right? So a lot of those things are looking like remote engagement. For our youth programs, for instance, they're exploring and hopefully will be implementing a remote mentoring program with the schools. And so we have these deep relationships with the schools. What are ways that we can continue engaging? And what are ways that we can shift our programming to meet the needs that are currently happening in our community, right? Those needs are changing rapidly with what's been going on. And so how do we respond to those things in more real time? Similarly with GUSR, they're exploring what that will look like, connecting with participants and students over at least the short term virtually, what those spaces could look like. And with our food programs, there'll be opportunities to get involved with our campus kitchens programs. That will also probably look different given the number requirements for students, but there are plenty of ways to get engaged that way. Additionally, our office is really kind of thinking through and trying to consider what it would look like to offer more engagement sessions online. So like, what does it look like to engage with food insecurity as a topic and have our students do some deep learning virtually online if they can't be physically involved in the community. It's a really difficult time for so many people, but what does engagement look like when the most responsible way to engage is to isolate and social distance? I mean, that's a real thing that we have to respond to. How do we take this opportunity to have our students reflect on what that means? What does it mean that we're in a pandemic, and how do we respond now, given this opportunity, right? And so this is the real world context that we are always engaging in, and there will be opportunities to engage virtually for sure, in person. There'll be limited opportunities up front, but as things kind of move through phases, we're hopeful that we'll be able to connect with our community physically.
Awesome, thank you, Anthony. I'm going to continue through the chat concerning the answers that Dr. Vandenboom gave earlier. Joan Iva said, for DICE, I echo Colleen's comments about offering both in-person and online programs, activities, and services. Next comment was, I think virtual events are great, but also different for students that have already formed friend groups. It's a great way for them to connect. What specifically is going to be targeted to freshmen to form friendships and encourage forming these vital relationships in the fall? Dr. Vandenboom responded, orientation will be a critical first step for new students to connect virtually. They will be put in small groups where they spend some quality time with a group. Additionally, we've seen great success with virtual events. Students are connecting really well. Also with classes, they meet friends there and then connect outside of the classroom. And then we had a question from Caroline. You answered this partly just now, but how do students learn of all clubs, organizations available? My son isn't one that would seek one out. I'm highly encouraging him to join 1 and 2, but wondering about outreach versus researching your website.
Can I pop in there? Do you mind?
Go ahead.
So all the new students have received an email about this really cool new tool that we've got called the Involvement Calculator. ZagTivities is a website at GU, and it's if you go on my GU and they type in ZagTivities, it is our clearinghouse for all events, all clubs, departmental programs. So Anthony and Joan Iva and all of our events are in there. And what we've done with the Involvement Calculator is when your student logs into ZagTivities, it will say, please fill out the involvement calculator. And basically they tell us what their interests are. Again, think dating app, right? Like I like soccer, I like hiking. And then on the back end, our amazing student employees are matching your students' interests with what we've got going on. And then they'll get a specific email that says like, hey, Susie Q, sounds like you like hiking. We suggest checking out this. And you also love poetry, so we suggest checking out this. So we are being really purposeful with that. The Cork app is CORQ, is a free app that anybody can download from the Apple Store. And what's awesome about that is all of the events that are in ZagTivities are on that, all of the clubs. It has direct contact information for the clubs. So your student or loved one doesn't even have to they put on nice clothes. They can check out and email all the clubs and connect. And we'll also have a virtual club fair this year, and we usually have like a virtual everything fair this fall. And I know that right now it feels like, how do students find out about information? But I mean, I think Anna probably knows, morning mail, we have a What's at GU weekly email. They read the paper, Twitter, we're hot on social media. So your students will hear about this. It's hard to ignore it. So as long as they're alive and breathing, they probably will find out what's happening.
I definitely encourage your student to check their email every single morning. There's going to be a lot of info out there. We're going to move on with the Q&A. Will students be able to work in these departments if they are virtual? We did have a typed response from Dr. Vandenboom. Yes, many of us have had student employees all summer. The opportunities may be virtual or hybrid. Do any of the other presenters want to talk about how they're going to be handling student employment?
Yeah, I mean, we'll handle it the same way we did in spring. So, you know, we had students working remotely. We gave them, there were still Zoom meetings, staff meetings. We used Trello board to make assignments. And so we can shift based on whether they're here in person or virtually.
Yeah, and then for the Center for Community Engagement, we have student employees working as center liaisons, usually working on a variety of projects for us. Most of those can be shifted to remote work and have been over the summer. We have our community engaged learning interns who help support our CEL classes, and those interns will be able to work from home to do that, hold virtual office hours, et cetera. And similarly for our marketing interns, they can do all of that work remotely as well. So we plan on having opportunities for our students to seek employment with us. Students already have, and so we plan on having that for the fall.
And there's a new portal for student employment because we used to use Handshake. Is there anyone remembering what it was? It's a Zag branded thing again. Zag.
Active?
I think it's like
Sorry.
something.
It's brand new. That's why we're not remembering the new branded name. But it is where all of on-campus and probably off-campus too, student employment opportunities. So it's basically the job search engine. We'll get you that name to you all shortly.
Zags Ignite.
There you go, Zags Ignite. I knew it was
Thanks,
something very
Colleen.
nation.
Okay, let's continue with the Q&A. Thank you everybody for your answers. Do you envision that students are going to be able to volunteer with ZAG Volunteer Corps, GUSR, etc. this fall? And I know, Anthony, you did answer that in a previous answer, but if you want to expand at all.
Yeah, I mean, for this semester, it's probably gonna look a little different, but we envision having volunteer opportunities for our students. The needs have just shifted a little bit. I mean, a lot of it is how are we connecting with people given our restrictions, right? We have certain realities that we're living in, but the need for connection hasn't been greater, I don't think. And so, how are students able to still connect, and how are our community partners still able to connect with our students in the same way?
Thank you. We did have a question about orientation. Will orientation be conducted 100% virtually? If my son decides to live on campus, will he attend virtually from his room, or will on-campus students have small group orientation? And Joan Iva, you did answer that in the chat. On-campus students will still have in-person small group interactions during a new student orientation. I know I don't have a lot of info about it, but if you want to expand, I welcome you to.
Yeah, there should be a schedule coming out in the next few weeks. It's going to be jam-packed and robust, is probably even more so because now we're not confined by physical borders. But essentially, there will be small group How to Zag sessions in the morning. There'll be affinity groups where that they stay with for like kind of the early afternoon, and then the late afternoon will be elective opportunities. And these programs will be offered both in person and online. And I know that students will be asked to register for everything so that we kind of can monitor numbers and make sure we're adhering to all the COVID-19 restrictions. But yes, it's both and. That will be the answer for almost everything.
Okay, and then we did have a question sent to us privately. Let me pull that up real quick. Let's see. My daughter wants to come to campus, but after yesterday's letter, we aren't sure if only some students are welcome or anyone can come to live on campus. Okay. From my understanding of the letter and the information that we have received, it's going to be up to the student to decide if they want to come back to campus and discuss that with their family, whether or not they believe that is the best choice for them. If any of our presenters want to expand on that at all, I welcome you to.
Yeah, I just echo. I mean, it's definitely not certain students. It is very much student agency, parent and family agency to determine what is the best course of action, whether to come to campus or to take advantage of the virtual opportunities.
And we know, so Amy Swank, who runs our parent and family programs, is working on an email out to parent and families that should hopefully go out today or if not tomorrow, providing a little bit more clarity. We know our president is many things and he is verbose, and sometimes that can be challenging to completely read what he's getting at. So Amy, it will be much more clear.
Thank you. We had a private question. I know it's hard to speculate, but what if things go more increasing in numbers of COVID cases? Is there a reality that things may close down completely while students are on campus? And what would your steps be if that were to happen?
I mean, I think to be fully transparent, like almost anything can happen, right? So I think it could be very much a repeat of the spring semester, but hopefully, not hopefully, I know we have learned many important lessons from having dealt with this pandemic for the past 4 or 5 months. We are in daily, if not hourly, conversations with our Spokane Regional Health District, as well as state governors and government around what is allowed versus not. And so we will get that communication, I think, out as soon as we know it, but we're closely monitoring the numbers and and adhering very much so that safety is priority. But yes, we can not guarantee that we would stay open regardless of what happens in the future, because again, safety is our utmost concern.
That is the last question. Ooh, we got another one right now. My son's move-in time is Friday afternoon. Since he can't be on campus before that time, will that impact his ability to participate in orientation events? No, it will not. First year experience, they're going to make sure that all new students have access to the events that are planned for your student. This is for your student, and they're going to be able to participate in all activities. If anybody wants to expand.
So I'm helping to run up to plan the 1 to 5 events. And let me just tell you, there's on Saturday and Sunday, there'll be over 180 opportunities for your child to choose from. So, and many of those will be offered Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if they move in on Wednesday, great. If they move on Saturday, great. They'll still be able to go hiking or, engage in dialogue, whatever it looks like. We're purposely doing that model so everybody will be able to hit it.
Awesome. And then our last question in there, what is the topic of the next ZagTalk webinar? We do not yet have a finalized topic. We don't have a ZagTalk planned for next week. We plan on launching parent and family orientation next Wednesday, August the 5th. So all of our parents that have registered for that orientation will have access to a lot of pre-recorded and live sessions throughout the month of August. So no ZagTalk next week. If we do get more campus partners that would like to interact with our parents in this type of a way, we will continue the series, but for now, this is our last one. We're getting a lot of thanks in the comments, so thank you to our wonderful presenters for the information that they gave us. It is 1 p.m. I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes, but that'll be the end of our webinar.
Real quick, Anna, I just wanted to say, Colleen and Joniva mentioned how much people in this work are typically drawn to it because it's vocational. And so like, I understand from the parent's point of view, I'm a new parent myself, how anxious you could be for like your students. That's a real anxiety that we're feeling. And I want to just like express that while there's so many challenges and restrictions right now, this is also like a tremendous opportunity for us, not only us as Gonzaga, us as staff, but your students as well, to engage deeply during this really critical, important time. So we're here for your students, and we want to just let you know that, like, we're here for your students. And so as much as we can be of assistance, let us know. Hopefully you have my contact information, but we're here for you.
Thanks, everyone. We're excited to meet your wonderful people.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, so this recording will be available soon. As soon as I close out the meeting, it'll download the video, and then I'll be sending it off to a coworker so they can edit it a little bit, and then it'll be going out in a communication this afternoon, and it will also be posted in our parent portal. So it will be available hopefully by this afternoon. I'm gonna go ahead and answer this. Do you get the impression that if there is a large percentage of students opt for distant learning, that there will still be in-person classes? I honestly don't have an answer to that. I think it's all just...
I do know that there are some classes for sure where they are emphasizing in-person learning, depending on major, like the lab classes or things that have a practicum, some of the like fine arts, like dance, you know, there's going to be some that cannot take place online. Of course, they will figure something out if we all have to go online, but to my knowledge, we are really still trying the hybrid approach of both in person and online.
Thank you. I am gonna go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for all of your help. Really do appreciate it.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.